And welcome everyone to day 3 of Beyond the Forecast. Now I'll stop giving you the days here shortly, I promise. But welcome to Beyond the Forecast, the show, half-hour show that we give you the science and weather and the science behind the weather. No forecasting here, no 7-day forecast for you, but what we're going to be looking at is more the science behind the weather that you see on a daily basis, but also the science behind the weather that you might not see on a daily basis. Both local, national, international, we stuff it all together and give you what you need to know about the weather. So this week, sticking with our theme, severe weather awareness. And the last few days we've given you some great tips about shelters as well as the differences between what to look for with severe weather, what makes severe weather, and also just a few fun experiments, and that will continue here throughout this week. So in this episode, we're going to dive first into SPC forecasts, Storm Prediction Center forecasts. You know, those things that say slight risk or high risk, and that's the potential for severe weather. Well, good news is Meteorologist John Gross is going to break that all down for you and show you the numbers that we associate those risks for and exactly what those forecasts are used for 1, 2, 3 days before a severe weather event. And then we also have a fun little experiment for you. I sit down and show you the difference between high pressure and low pressure, but visually, so you can see the difference between high pressure and low pressure, and a fun little experiment that you can do with your family, or maybe you can even do at school. Pretty cool thing there. And then we also dive back into our podcast, me and meteorologist Haley Fischetti, to give you another segment of our podcast that we have done recently. And good news is, coming up here very shortly, we are going to be doing our first live podcast where you can interact with us, and the topic will be out there on the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page. So make sure that you check that out, because we're going to be talking about severe weather tomorrow on our first live podcast where you can interact and ask questions and we talk about it and discuss. But let's start off today with this day in history. This was actually pretty crazy. And March 26, 1913. Take yourself way back to 1913 if you can. But this was a massive, massive flooding. This was called the Great Flood of 1913. The Ohio River Basin got a ton of rain. So this was a late or early spring storm that started off as a little bit of snow, but then turned to rain and melted all the snow in Ohio, Indiana, as well as down the Mississippi River. So the Ohio River did some massive damage. In fact, is still the greatest weather disaster in Ohio history. $333 million in damage. March 26 was the peak of the Great Flood of 1913. That water continued down the waterways to the Mississippi River and also created massive flooding from north to south along the Mississippi River. So an estimated 650 people died from this flood, and it was still, to this day, the greatest weather disaster in Ohio history. And you can see from the pictures, Dayton, areas towards Cleveland, there was some massive flooding. But that was this day, back in 1913, the Great Flood. Now, trivia. Answer those questions that we had yesterday for you. Yesterday's trivia question was, what term is used to describe snow, sleet, hail, and rain? Is it winter, precipitation, soggy stuff, or water types? Well, it's precipitation, so if you guessed precipitation, good on you. A+ for the day. Now, today's trivia question, we want to know, what do you call the extremely dry period with no rain? Is it summer? Is it dry spell? Is it water shortage, or is it drought? So hit that UR code. That'll take you to where you can vote, and we'll share those answers with you tomorrow. So get in there, get in to vote. And then also, of course, with the QR code that we have there for you to vote, don't forget about our newsletter. That is absolutely free. You can sign up with this QR code. All you have to do is get your phone out, use the camera feature, hit that QR code, open the link that it gives you, and it will take you to where you can sign up for the Beyond the Forecast newsletter, which has your forecast for the morning, 60-second video forecast for you so you know what to expect for the day as you step out the door, and then also segments from Beyond the Forecast, and also trivia. It's all on there. So sign up for it. It's absolutely free. And also don't forget about our Facebook page, the YouTube pages, as well as everything where you can find all this content. Now, viewer photo of the day, brought to you by Great Room. These are so much fun to see every day, and if you do have photos or if you want to snap some photos and send them in, you can send them all to us here at 9 and 10 News, and we will choose those photos as we get them. But today's photo comes from Kendra, and it is titled "An Early Spring Sunset over Lake Michigan." Absolutely beautiful photo, Kendra. Thank you so much for sending that in, and it just goes to show one reason that we love living here in the Great Lakes State is pictures like this. So thank you again, Kendra. Appreciate that viewer photo of the day brought to you by Great Rooms. Now, let's dive into the show, shall we? Continuing severe weather, meteorologist John Gross is going to break down the SPC forecast for you, what it means to you, what you should look out for, and how it keeps us all safe. We'll have that coming up right after the break.
Well, hey there everyone, Meteorologist John Gross. Today, we are going to be talking about severe thunderstorm categories. What exactly does that mean for you? And what exactly does that mean for me? Sometimes these categories, honestly, they can be a little bit confusing. If you've ever seen a map with some of these colors talking about severe weather chances, they might have used terms like, oh, we have a slight risk today, or oh, we have a moderate risk today. What exactly does all of that mean? Well, we're going to talk about it and talk about what each category means. Now, here's a look at them, all 6. Now, these are issued by the Storm Prediction Center, otherwise known as the SPC. Now, we have 6 on here, but 5 of them are technically when we're talking about severe weather. We have just general thunderstorms right there in that light-colored green shading. That's the chance again for non-severe thunderstorms, where you still could get thunder, lightning, and maybe some flooding concerns, but once we start to get into the other 5, that's when things can start to get a little bit interesting. So let's go ahead and talk about them, and just remember, when severe weather is being issued, or we think we're going to have it, and we have it issued in the forecast, there's an acronym that a lot of meteorologists use. It's called SLIM, and we talk about wind shear, instability in the atmosphere, lift in the atmosphere, how much moisture do we have in the atmosphere. All of those things coming together gives us the priorities, or at least the parameters to look at for the chances for strong to severe storms. So again, this is the first one. When we talk about general thunderstorms, we're talking about non-severe thunderstorms. Now, we see these all the time, and the chances there for still lightning, flooding, that exists with any thunderstorm, whether it is severe or not. But these are general thunderstorms, main hazards. We talk about winds up to 40 miles per hour. When we say small hail, remember, you need at least the hailstone to be 1 inch plus in diameter for it to be technically categorized as severe. So less than 1 inch in diameter with our hail, and usually when we're talking about just general thunderstorms, the tornado risk is pretty low, or in most cases, non-existent. But as we continue on, we're getting into the categories now. 1 through 5 is what they're labeled, and that's what we'll have them labeled for you right up here. Marginal, that's number 1 out of 5, so that's the green colored shading. Isolated severe storms, but usually they're limited in coverage and intensity, so they're not really going to be long-lasting. Now, they can occur, but probably not going to be tracking over a longer period of time. There's a look at those hazards. Winds anywhere from 40 to even near 60 miles per hour, and once we start to get the winds above 57 miles per hour or above, that's when we're talking about that severe criteria. Hail up to at least 1 inch in diameter, and the tornado risk. It's low, but it's not zero. Have we seen tornadoes occur when we have marginal risks in play? Yes. Do they happen all the time? No. But it is still not zero. That's number 1. Let's look at number 2. This is the slight risk. Scattered severe storms are possible. Still short-lived, usually not as widespread, but you still could get a few isolated, intense, severe thunderstorms. And the hazards, those are just going to continue to get worse as we go up in category. So again, this is 2 out of 5. Damaging winds, even straight line winds. Remember, you need that 57 or greater for the winds to be categorized as severe. Hail, 1 to even near 2 inches. So now we're getting closer to golf ball sized hail potentially. And even still, the tornado risk, now we're talking about the chance for maybe 1 or even 2 tornadoes to touch down. Let's go ahead and move on. This is number 3. So now you're talking about the orange shading you would see on the map. This is called the enhanced risk. So we're now at 3 out of 5. So now we're starting to really get up on the ladder for these categories. Now we're talking about numerous severe storms. So you can have multiple severe thunderstorms. You could even have multiple tornado warnings potentially when you have an enhanced risk. These are usually more persistent, widespread, with a few of those intense storms that again can produce damaging winds, hail, usually near 1 to even near 2 inches, even 2+ at times, but usually still within that 1 to 2 inch diameter range for the hail. And now we're talking about the chance for a few tornadoes, so 2+ tornadoes could be possible when you're talking about an enhanced risk. As we move on, now we're getting to the top of our categories. These are less common to be issued, but when they are issued, we are expecting widespread severe weather. So now we're at the red shading, moderate, 4 out of 5. There it is, widespread severe storms, usually long-lived, widespread, and intense. So now we are expecting these storms to be widespread. We're expecting these storms to be long-lived, so they can move by county to county or potentially from state to state, depending on exactly what's happening. Hazards, they're usually more widespread with the damaging winds. And then you're talking about those hailstones. Remember, the past 2, we were talking about usually 1 to 2 inches. We could talk about hailstones here 2+ inches. So now you're getting into softball-sized hail. You're getting into grapefruit-sized hail. That's when we can really start to do a lot of damage to any property outside. Strong tornadoes, the enhanced Fujita scale, remember that's EF0 to EF5. Usually when we're talking about strong tornadoes, that's when you talk about an EF3+. And those winds are easily topping 100+ miles per hour. Now, this is when we talk about the highest category, literally high. 5 out of 5, you're talking about that pink shading. Widespread storms, they're likely. Like we are expecting a severe weather outbreak depending on what is going on across the country for a certain portion. Long-lived, very widespread, and particularly very intense storms. This is the highest category you get. So again, usually when we're talking about these high categories, they're not issued often, but when they are, usually you could expect a big severe weather outbreak. So the hazards, this is as bad as it gets. Widespread damage, you're talking about damaging winds, straight line winds, usually anything outdoors. If you're caught in one of these storms, it's not looking good for any outdoor property. Large hail, you're talking about, again, softball-sized hail, grapefruit-sized hail. Can do a lot of damage to cars, windows, crops, agriculture, and then tornadoes. You're talking about EF4s to even your EF5s. Not good when you're talking about severe weather. So, again, these are the categories that we talk about with severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center. So the next time you are ever issued a severe weather outlook and we're talking about these severe weather categories, you'll know exactly what to expect. I'm Meteorologist John Gross for Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, John. That's great information. Now, coming up next on Beyond the Forecast, we show you a really cool experiment to show you the difference between high pressure and low pressure, and you can do it as well. We'll have that coming up right after the break. Today we're going to show you a little experiment to show you the differences between high pressure and low pressure and how you can show the kids, or if you want to do it yourself, or even for a classroom, you might be able to show this as well. So first off, we're going to show you how to do this experiment and the tools that you will need. So first up, you're going to need a glass. You're going to need a plate that kind of has an edge on it that you can put water, and I put blue coloring in it, and you'll see the overview of this if you can't see it there. You're also going to need a candle, some food coloring, and then also a lighter. So if you are going to be doing this, make sure you have the parents with you, because obviously flames are involved, and when flames are involved, make sure adults are accompanying you. This one might not actually light. And then what you want to do is, once you have everything all collected up, you have your plate with the water in it, some food coloring in it, your glass, your candle. You're going to want to place this candle in the center of your dish. And then once the time arrives, what you're going to do is you're going to light the candle as it's sitting in the water on the dish, and then put the glass on top of the candle. And what's going to happen is, as the heat continues from the candle, it starts creating a low pressure inside of the cup, creating the water to rise because out here is the higher pressure. So we put our candle there and it's lit, and then we put the cup over top of it. So what's happening here is when you light the candle on the plate of water and then carefully cover it with the glass, as the candle burns, it heats the air inside the glass, creating low pressure, causing the water to rise up on the sides of the glass due to the high pressure outside pushing against that low pressure inside. Now, once the candle goes out like we saw, the air cools and contracts, further demonstrating the pressure difference. Do you see that jump? And the water is continuing to go up. Now, I did think maybe I'd have a floating candle so the candle would go up, but the flame was extinguished because it ran out of fuel to continue to ignite it. And you can see the pressure difference from out here to in there. Low pressure, high pressure. And that's what you're seeing here. And then once you lift up on it, the pressure is going to turn back to whatever the pressure is in the room. So once we break that connection, there you go. So pretty cool little fun experiment that you can do. You can also do some other fun experiments. That will show pressure, such as taking a card and filling a glass and putting the card over top of it and then turning the glass upside down. And what's going to happen is then you can let go of the card because of the pressure holding it there. Once you remove the card, obviously the pressure changes. But a little fun experiment for you to try, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, or whether it is somewhere where you want to show the little ones or maybe even yourself. There's the difference between high pressure and low pressure and what happens. A little science for you, but mixed with a little weather because weather is science. So there you go. Fun little activity for you to try out.
And coming up next here on Beyond the Forecast, we take you into our new podcast, our new episode, and we break it down what we talked about this week and what you can look forward to listening or watching on the social media platforms. We'll have all those details right after the break.
And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. Hope you enjoyed John's explanation of the SPC forecast, and I really hope you enjoyed that fun little experiment that you can do anywhere. Super fun to show the kids and anyone who's interested the difference between high pressure and low pressure, and when you can visually see it, what it does, pretty cool. So try those out. We'll have more on those on the 9 and 10 News webpage. Just click Beyond the Forecast, and you can see all those segments as well as some social science videos as well. And we'll do more of that STEM stuff as we work through the episode, so pretty cool. Now, coming up, we are going to show you another segment of Beyond the Forecast podcast. Now, tomorrow, like I mentioned, we will have our very first live Beyond the Forecast podcast. We'll be live on the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page, the 9 and 10 News YouTube channel, as well as my Facebook channel, the 9 and 10 News Meteorologist Michael Stevens Facebook channel, and we will be sitting down and discussing severe weather. And hopefully everything goes well. But what's cool about it is all the chats will be integrated, so all the comments and everything, we will see them. So we can discuss and talk about severe weather together. And that's going to be the podcast you'll see come later Thursday, Friday, and into next week. And we'll do that every week. So pretty cool. But this podcast is one that wasn't live, but is out there for you to listen to or to watch. And we were breaking down winter, or kind of the different parts of winter, the lack of, but at the same time, record amounts of snow. And also what we could see going into spring, summer if we continue this trend. Check it out.
Call back to winter. We just had system snow.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different in the fact that La Nina is generating the snow because of our very warm waters before they can cool down. Now, if you were to freeze the lakes completely over, you turn into Wisconsin or Minnesota or the Dakotas. You turn into a frozen tundra. That lake does many things. Lakes, I should say, does many things for us that a lot of people probably don't understand. It gives us a bubble. So when it's 20, 30 below in Wisconsin, lake air actually gives us a bubble and keeps us much warmer because we're not landlocked. The air
breaks the cold up for us, really.
Yeah, it keeps us at 0. So if it's 0 for a high or 5, that's a very cold air mass, especially if your lakes are open. But when you take the lakes away and they're completely...
It has no issue just driving through us.
Because we no longer have the protection of the lake. The good thing about ice for the lakes is no evaporation, so you're not losing water. So we're going to go back to Enso neutral.
Yep.
And that should give us a very normal spring/summer. There shouldn't be anything crazy here, but that should be good news for the farmers. The last thing you want to do is go into spring or summer with severe drought
With
conditions.
the drought that we have.
Yeah, you don't want that because you're going to stress trees out. You're going to hurt the crops. You're going to hurt the ground in general.
Right.
Grass would be turning green for a period of time. But you hurt so many things by not having that moisture in the ground going through spring and into
Right.
summer. And that's definitely what we don't want.
No.
The other thing to think about here going through the rest of winter and into spring is the snow melt. Right now, we're gradually melting, so we shouldn't have flooding issues.
Right.
Now, that's not to say the Muskegon River or other rivers are going to have, they always have flooding concerns in
Yeah,
the spring.
we see a little bit of a rise real
Manistee
quick.
over by Sherman, that's always rising because there's low spots. But
Right.
we should not be looking at prolonged, widespread flooding for the spring.
Which is great.
Which is great. We don't want that.
Because it also doesn't help with the drought either. A lot of
No.
water melting all at once.
Just
when you
standing.
have really dry grounds like we do,
Yeah.
it can saturate the ground as slowly as Mother Nature would really like it to. So instead, it kind of we talk about ponding on the roadways. It kind of just
Yep.
stands still, and that's where you have the mud season, the mush, the grossness. You're stepping on
ugly season,
sludge
as
all
I
the
call it,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're dealing with. So this nice, slow, prolonged melting that we have is actually great for the ground and for the drought in a way. Is it going to help solve our drought problems? No.
No.
But it's going to help the ground a little bit more.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Forecast. Truly appreciate it. Be good, stay safe, take care. And for Meteorologist John Gross and Meteorologist Haley Fischetti, I'm Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens. Have a wonderful day, everybody.